What y'all listening to?
Limelight Highlight Podcast.
Hello. Welcome back, my fellow listeners, to the podcast, your silver lining space to take a break from the stressful everyday. It's been a while since we last spoke, and man, between work becoming seriously busy, the renovations we're going through in the house, and personal life stuff, I really haven't had the time to give much attention towards the podcast or the pages as I'd like to, and I'm kind of feeling it. I've had such a desire to make this podcast a platform, something people can flock to for good news week in and week out, and for it to be just nice and big. But after talking with the guys from TBA Podcast, I had to remind myself that I told myself if it starts to feel like work, I need to take a break from it. So needless to say, since it's been so hectic and busy, I don't want to give this thing a half-ass effort and stress myself by being overwhelmed. I just took a week off. So that's why you haven't heard from me, and it's only going to get more busy because the holiday season is coming up, and I got to go travel back and forth, going back to Philly and Massachusetts. It's going to be a pretty busy end of the year, but I will try my hardest to get you some good content week in and week out, and so you can share and listen whenever you get the chance. As far as good news goes, The Block Gives Back has officially reached a tax-exempt status, which is huge and will help them tremendously in their future events. They also have an official operating base, if I didn't say so before. Congratulations to them. It's at Torzel Ave in Tacony. That's a huge step for them moving up in the world. And as far as events, it's the last Tuesday of every month coming up, so their monthly Feed the Block event will be going on as per usual. They do this every last Tuesday of the month, so if you miss out this time, be sure to catch up with them next month. Pasta, hot chocolate, salad, and garlic bread will all be on the menu for Tuesday to feed 150 plus men and women in need. They always need volunteers, so be sure to hit them up and see how you can help. Also, you want to make sure you join The Block Is Back for their annual end of the year John. This is an event where they will have 250 customized canvas tote bags filled with everyday essentials and winter necessities to be giving out, along with 250 plus catered meals on December 21st. Once again, volunteers will always be needed to help serve food and hand out bags, and of course donations, however big or small, are always welcome. If you need to find a place to drop off the bags and or donations, be sure to check out their website, theblockisback.org, for all of the list of those locations. And if you want to give a monetary donation, you can do that there as well. They'll have a bunch of apps listed where you can Venmo them or Cash at them. All the proceeds go to a good cause. Now, this is a great segue to our story today. I got a couple facts for you. In 2017, 40 million people struggled with hunger in the United States. An estimated 15 million households were food insecure. 45 million Americans rely on stipends or aid to buy food each month, according to the USDA, and 1 in 6 American children may not know where their next meal is coming from. I know, it's pretty depressing. Those are just some facts about hunger in America that I pulled off the internet. Not just a bullcrap site, but a statistical site, the USDA. It's a huge problem that breaks off and stems to a ton of other different problems, economically, socially. It's a lot. But in the spirit of Thanksgiving, today's article is about those who protect and serve, those who are trying to reduce this problem, at least for the holiday season. Lately, there's been reports of police departments using parking ticket fees to help fund important community initiatives throughout the states. Several law enforcement agencies have been collecting donations for teachers, animal shelters, and holiday toy drives. Pretty good deal, right? Back in 2017, the Lexington Police Department in Ohio opted to accept canned food donations instead of people paying their parking tickets. And since this has been going on for some time now, that exact police department is teaming up with an organization called the Bay Food Ministry to collect donations for food until December 25th of this year. Last year, the Bay Food Ministry was reportedly responsible for donating 47,392 pounds of food. That is a lot of food. And this year, the police department is accepting up to $25 worth of non-perishable food items for each individual parking violation. And they got a actually pretty catchy name for it, and they call it the Food for Fines, and hope that other police departments will follow their example and launch a similar charity drive in their own cities. Now, as much as I love this story and deeply commend the police departments that are participating, a part of me wonders why they don't do these things all year round. I'm not sure how it works or what ridiculous rules are in place that may be keeping things like this from going on all year round, but it's one of the reasons I love the holiday season. I think it's a mixture of the cold and the hard, terrible places that some people are in, and the holiday environment of cheer and togetherness that makes people want to go that extra mile to help each other out and do something good for one another. And in no way, shape, or form am I trying to take away from this awesome idea of spreading through the country to help others for the holidays, for sure. But can you imagine, just for a second, if this was a year-round thing? I know I've spoken in previous podcasts as well as this one. I've talked about how people in the United States suffering from hunger, not knowing where their next meal is going to come from. If you know anything about shelters or food shelters and food, soup kitchens and stuff like that, some of them have very limited resources and can only help a certain amount of people. After they get to that maximum occupancy or whatever the case is, a lot of people get turned away. And of course, we as a country need to come together and help each other out. But as far as city officials and officers of the law go, I think they need to be more part of these things year round rather than just the holidays. You can call me a hippie or socialist or whatever you want to say, but if we had more officers who are sworn to protect and serve do as much serving as they do protecting, I think we could see some serious change. And I understand there's some stigma about police officers, and in the age of social media where countless videos that focus on injustices or power trips some officers still appear to be on. But, you know, as with everything, we mostly like to focus on the negative and overlook the positive. So you don't get to see nearly as many of the videos showing officers being seriously involved in community relationships or building those relationships with people as you do the terrible encounters. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have seen those videos of officers just pulling up to play football or basketball with the neighborhood kids in the street because somebody called the cops on them or some nonsense. You know, those are positive reinforcing interactions that we need. And another reason why I'm a huge supporter of having police officers patrol their own neighborhoods, like beat cops. I'm pretty sure that's what they call them. They walk the beat. They patrol the place that they're from or the neighborhood that they live in. And in my opinion, it makes for better community interaction. I mean, we've all heard those numerous stories of that's terrible stories of officers showing up to a scene they're not familiar with and immediately escalating the situation where people get shot because they didn't understand what was going on, and they shoot the wrong person. Not that they should be shooting anybody, but whatever. Instead of getting all the facts, it happens all the time. Whether it be someone with a mental health problem or physical mental impairment. If the officers who lived in those areas were more involved in the communities, then we'd probably see a less tense and violent interactions with each other. Or maybe I don't know what I'm talking about and I don't know how these things work, but it makes sense to me. Anyway, as I was saying, if this thing was year round, I'm pretty confident we see more officers in a better light. They'd be more involved year round. They'd see more faces, especially in the lower economical neighborhoods that they're serving in, because if we're being honest, these are the areas that need the most help. I mean, I remember growing up, I wasn't really in trouble with the law or anything, but I remember seeing the same familiar cops, same faces as far as officers go. And some of them were douchebags. That's just normal. But when they did their normal routine, their routes, it wasn't always to lock someone up. A lot of times I've seen interactions with them where they understood the situation before they even got to the scene. They were better equipped to dealing with certain people because they knew them. It was a familiarity about them that not only made their jobs easier, but made the environment a little better and understanding that a familiar face is coming around and not some stranger playing that power struggle game. I'm a cop, you know, you're a bad guy. Immediately they have those ideas about them. I don't know. To me, it's the ideal situation. But I understand it can't always be that way. There's just too many people. And especially living in an urban area, that city life, you got people playing those word games, and it's really simple and easy to see why cops don't trust everybody. Not making an excuse for their actions, but put yourself in their position. Their job is tremendously dangerous, and for the most part, they're putting their lives on the line each and every day, with the exceptions of what seems like to be a lot of bad apples. I don't think there's that many. I think social media shoves those things in our faces to bait the cops, and it's a high stress job. I know their training stage should be doing a lot more training, but that's neither here or there. But I think doing this, going back to the story, the narrative of how officers treat everyone can change. And maybe we can get back to trusting that those who serve will do the right thing, instead of constantly playing this cat and mouse game where the mentality is everybody's a bad guy and needs to be checked out or arrested or be checked into further. And then you run into that problem where people's rights are being violated. And by no means is this a simple solution to a very complex problem. I mean, right now, the country is in such a divide, it's going to take years and years before any serious progress can get made. But regardless, that shouldn't deter us from at least trying and becoming part of the solution, which is another reason why I really like to share these stories. I'm hoping to shine a light on a different way of thinking. I understand we're creatures of habit and emotion, and we act impulsively on a ton of things without thinking, which in turn makes a mess of everything. It's not an easy thing to check yourself, especially when you're in a high stress situation or angry. And I know it's easier said than done, but hopefully these things can help change the way we process certain scenarios. Take a step back and look. I mean, once again, I'm making a generalization, and this is not the case with everyone, if it feels that way. Maybe if we had a little more good shoved in our face instead of negative interactions with the law, things would be not so tense. But maybe that's just a fantastical way of thinking, and it might never happen, but I still think this is a good idea. So all in all, I love the idea about this story. I love that they're doing something about it. I love that they're taking not necessarily people's money for parking violations or petty things that you constantly see on the news or interactions on Facebook and videos. They're doing something good. Food drive, even if it's just for the holidays. I'd love for them to do it year round. I think overall would be great, but you have other organizations doing stuff like the Block Is Back. I know I talk endlessly about them, but these are the guys that are out there. They're getting involved. And you know what I love about it? A lot of their events they have, as far as Philadelphia goes, I can't speak on everybody because there's a lot of states out there, and this is the only place that I'm from, but they have officers that have come out that they get real familiar with. I mean, you've heard Hakeem on the podcast, and Tommy talk about some of the interactions they have with police officers, not even at events, just police officers, and they recognize them, and the whole dynamic changes. I mean, can you just imagine how much better that would be if you had police officers who were heavily involved in the community, and they saw these people every single day, and they're like, hey, I remember you. We had a really good interaction, because it's those first impressions. It's not coming up to somebody's window and immediately judging them on the way they look or the way they talk or the way they carry themselves or the music that's playing in the car. There's a lot of social cues that we give off that immediately put things into this really awkward and weird situation. You don't know this person. You don't know what's going on. So there's immediate distrust. I mean, even when I drive, my heart drops. I know I'm not doing anything wrong, but when a cop is behind me, my heart just drops, and I'm like, man, I'm about to get pulled over for what? I see a cop, I want to slow down. It's not like I'm breaking the law or anything. It's just this dynamic that's been going on constantly. So I think, once again, positive reinforcement, getting more involved in the communities, seeing their faces, you get more comfortable. You're not comfortable to get away with things, but comfortable in the sense of, hey, he'll have a little more understanding because he at least seen me. I'm not a stranger to him. I mean, you got tons of those videos. People, who are you? Do you live here? I need to see some identification. Like, no, you don't. I'm rambling. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But I'd love to hear what you think and feel about this initiative or these situations. And if you have anything to add, or even if you disagree with me, I'd love to hear your opinion. Or if you want to share a good news story or even a problem that you've been noticing that needs some positive attention, I can be reached on Instagram and Facebook.